Alright, hi everyone. I said I could write an essay on my lyric choices for Goddish, and I decided to make good on that. This is a rather complicated song, and it's deeply rooted in its own cultural context, right down to the title and the most common phrase in the song, Kami poi na. We'll get to exactly what that means and how I chose to convey it in English, but first I think we should step back and look at the song as a whole. That's what I do first when I write lyrics. I need to make sure I understand the big idea of the song. So, first of all, what is the story here? What is the song about? I see this singer as an ordinary girl, while the subject, the person she's singing about, is someone who's made it in some way. They're famous or successful, and in the context of this song, most likely some kind of influencer or internet celebrity who presents the illusion of having a perfect life on their social media. Pushing back against this illusion of a perfect life is one of the main ideas of the song. The singer is cynical because she knows that real life isn't so glamorous. On top of that, she's very critical of the person she's singing about. They're praised as godlike and practically worshipped, and they act like they're above everyone else. The singer is criticizing the whole practice of worshipping people in this way. It disgusts her. And yet, despite this disgust, despite knowing it's wrong, the singer is also jealous. She sees how unfair and impossible being godlike is, yet she can't help but want it for herself all the same. If she was in that position of being worshipped, she would do all the things that she's criticizing the subject for. So there's even an element of self-hatred here. She's a coward, pushing her criticisms onto the subject so she doesn't have to look inward and criticize herself. And in the end, she wishes that she could have gone her whole life without ever seeing the glamorous, manufactured lives that people appear to be living, because then she would never have wanted such impossible things for herself, and thus never would have felt their absence. Alright, so now that we know the story, let's look at how it's told. The song's original name is Kami poi na, and that's the phrase, the meaning, the whole idea at the very heart of this song. While Goddish is a literal translation of the phrase, Kami poi na is more than the sum of its parts. There is cultural context here that is crucial to understanding the meaning of the song. Firstly, Kami poi na is slang, specifically Japanese net slang, internet slang. It's something that people throw around in comment sections, casually, carelessly. It basically means something is cool or awesome, and it's divorced from the more literal religious implications of the words that comprise it. Kami being the character for God. Now let's look at its translation. Goddish is not something you'll find in an English comment section, except for maybe in a cover of Goddish, because it's not a casual compliment people give. It's not a pre-existing phrase, and it would be very uncommon in English, so it's definitely not slang. So I think the closest phrase would be godlike. Now, I'm not disparaging Pinocchio P's title here. I think Goddish is a perfect English title for the song. In being uncommon, it grabs your attention, and while it may not have the same context of being slang, it still imparts the meaning of Kami poi na perfectly well. But for a cover, for translyrics, we need more than hard translation, right? So if YouTube wouldn't have unalived me for it, I would have subtitled or even titled this cover Like a Fucking God. That was where this began in my head. I read up the lyrics after listening to Laplace's cover, and I marveled at how complicated and tricky the song would be to write English lyrics for. I saw the covers that were out there and thought of, okay, how would I do this cover, English cover, without ever saying the word goddish? So, like a fucking god was eventually the phrase that came to mind as I listened to the song and tried to figure out how to avoid saying goddish. Due to the structure of the song and the stresses of the phrase in English, it doesn't fit for every use of Kami poi na in this song. But at a fundamental level, the important thing is that poi na becomes like instead of ish. With this in mind, let's start from the very beginning. So, when I start to write lyrics for a song, I put whatever translation I'm using into one column, or sometimes multiple translations in multiple columns, and then set up a column for my own lyrics and align them line by line. However, I do also refer to the original Japanese and the Romaji at some points, especially for things like seeing what words or phrases are repeated, or seeing where random English words are placed in the song, because oftentimes they're not in the same place in a translation due to how Japanese grammar works. So, now that you know how the setup goes, let's dive into the actual cover. We're gonna take it line by line.
Oh my god. Spoiler warning, love's a bitch, cause you'll just break up. Then someday you'll close your eyes and never wake up.
Alright. So right from the start, we have this word netabare, which translates to spoiler. This is also slang, or at least according to Jisho, a colloquialism, just like the word spoiler in English. So not only do they both mean spoiler, but they also occupy the same sort of space in the language as colloquialisms. It's really lucky that we have a perfect analog. This doesn't happen a lot, honestly. But unlike the structure of the sentence in Japanese, spoiler warnings go at the beginning. So, there it is. Originally, I considered Love is War here as like a cheeky Vocaloid reference because I'm a boomer, but Love's a Bitch kept the edgy feel I wanted and is more like slang, which again is important to the vibe of the song. So when writing English translyrics, if a phrase is repeated in Japanese, the logical thing is to also repeat it in English. You have spoiler twice, you have netabare twice, but it's not always feasible. So a spoiler warning is only said once, but the phrase then serves to connect the second part of the phrase to the first. So the spoiler warning still applies. Notably absent from this part is the word like, which I said was my interpretation of poina. But it just didn't fit here. So I bring it back in the next line instead.
Pardon me for getting deep, but the world's like that. This playbook of isms got me dancing mad. My bad.
So, deep is another slang or colloquialism here, which imparts the meaningful and cool part, while also easily being read as sarcastic and cynical. Like, oh, it's not that deep, bro. The dancing with a ish wordbook part, that phrase really stumped me for a while. That phrase doesn't really bring any strong associations in English, in my opinion. Wordbook isn't a word you hear very often. I'd say it even sounds rather formal. I think playbook is a little more common, a little closer to slang. It either means sports strategies or the entirety of a play in book form. So in both cases, it's instructional. It's telling you what should be. As for the isms part, I meant it in the sense of how Google defines it as a distinctive practice, system, or philosophy, typically a political ideology or an artistic movement. A playbook of isms, then, is basically a bunch of stuff telling you what you're supposed to do, a particular way you're supposed to act or live. And I think that's enough to drive anybody crazy, hence the dancing mad. I don't know if that really counts as slang. I think Kefka's theme just kind of made an impact on me as a kid, but apparently it's also the name of a German film from the 20s, so that's cool. I think it's, a phrase that doesn't sound off in English. You don't really look twice at it, I think. And of course, pardon and my bad are basically two ways of saying excuse me, with my bad being slang, so yay for more slang. Alright, so the tutututus. I almost said like instead of foo at the end here, but I really just hated how it sounded. I think in Japanese, all the tuturutu parts, like right up until the foo, all those parts are just sounds, like saying la 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 or something like that in English. The foo is the only part that has an alternate double meaning of being a sound effect, but also a standalone word, which you can see here. These are just the sounds, and then bam, you have this kanji with this meaning of like a way of doing things. The foo is the only part with a double meaning. In English, I think the foo at the end comes across as just another sound effect. So the double meaning of foo in Japanese is lost, but I think it's kind of critical to keep the flow going in English. Just saying foo doesn't really sound out of place since you're already saying all of this. Now, as for the poina, so firstly and most crucially, it had to rhyme with God. And secondly, that's really what the song's about, isn't it? A singer who's jealous of an impossible, godlike life she'll never have. She wouldn't be so bitter about it if she was like that, so she's not like that, and that is where all of this is coming from.
Fucking God,
Yeah.
that's enough. I'm fed up. Didn't I tell you that's enough? But now.
Alright, so in Japanese, it's the same phrase repeated 4 times. In Japanese, the stress of a word in a song does not change the pronunciation. You can say watashi, 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 and it is still the same word. It sounds the same. But we don't have that luxury in English. So repeating that's enough 4 times would not feel like that same satisfying moize, sore moize in Japanese. Somehow we need to get the same idea across while not sounding awkward by stressing the wrong syllables. Hence, that's enough. I'm fed up. Didn't I tell you that's enough? So that's where the stresses are going. They all still make sense in English, and they all have the stresses on parts where it retains the pronunciation of the word properly.
Now you got me hyper, what's ahead?
And hype is slang.
Dreaming big, keep dreaming. Maybe your dream's the next big thing.
So dreaming big, keep dreaming. For me, I thought there's no good way to say it's big 4 times in English without sounding like an innuendo, which I'm not sure if is the intention or not. And also, again, stressing awkward syllables. Same issue as the last part. So in situations like these, this is where I take a step back and I say, okay, like what is the big idea here in this whole part here? And here, it's about someone having big dreams, lofty ambitions. Dreaming big is an idiom, like a known phrase in English, which means exactly that, which is another lucky, like, 1-to-1 analog that I can use. So keep dreaming keeps with the cynical vibe of the song, but then maybe your dream's the next big thing. The singer may be cynical, but at the same time, she knows someone is going to get lucky. Someone will be the next star.
Profit sweet, pockets deep, but a kind heart will spell the end.
So I think the yay in the original lyrics, let's see. Yeah, so the end, yay. Those yays in the original lyrics, I think they are sarcastic. I think yay carries the same celebratory meaning in Japanese usually. However, I think in English, repeating yay twice at this moment sounds a little funky. It's like an important, impactful phrase. And the end is right there in English. And in my opinion, it's begging to go on that high note there. This translation was a bit difficult to parse as well. This profitable yet graciousness is the end. But I came away with the main idea as you can't afford to be kind and gracious if you want to make it big. So that meaning is not impacted by the yays or the lack thereof. So I yeeted the yays. And now we got the chorus.
God's thoughts. Well, aren't you blessed unlike the rest, just like a fucking god?
So originally, I had just like a god, it's so unfair, just like a fucking god. But I think the flow is more important than the literal repetition of the phrase, kami poina. Well, aren't you blessed has the same vibe as godlike. It has this religious connotation that people don't really mean, and that phrase in particular has a very sarcastic, mean-spirited vibe to it. And, you know, unfair becomes unlike the rest. Pretty straightforward there.
I want you down so bad I can feel my IQ drop.
So Pinocchio P was really nice and gave us I want you in English. So I said thanks, and I kept it right where it was. Yeah, right there. I kept it right where it was. But there was a perfect opportunity to put in some more slang. So, you know, down so bad, I can feel my IQ drop. That gets across the same idea, and even, I think, paints the singer in a more almost pathetic light that highlights her hypocrisy. And it rhymes with God, so yay.
Wicked witch, that's what you're like, that's all you'll ever be.
And to me, evil-hearted sounds a bit too serious and, like, formal. I think Wicked Witch gets the same idea across, but is a more common, like, casual phrase. Also, we get another like in there for our poina.
I hate you, hey, who's the best now, you or me?
So there weren't enough syllables to repeat "I hate you" twice because, here they are. Sorry, Pinocchio P, I had to return half the gift you gave me here. I kept one of them. But hey who's sounds close enough and helps us fit in the rest of the idea, which is who's the pest now. Not gonna lie, I was really proud when I figured this one out. And now the fast parts. Woohoo.
It's the way you wear hair, about your eyes, about your lips, got the painted face, perfume, the latest fashion, like.
So, let's look. In Japanese, this part is saying that. Literally, sono kamigata, sono me, sono kuchimato, like sono. Just that. It's just pointing these things out. Not necessarily saying it's good or bad, which I think fits the idea of these mixed feelings of love and hate. And since we're talking about makeup and style, there's this added level of like manufactured perfection that's being pointed out here, of someone appearing to meet like impossible standards, bat your eyes, pout your lips, have the latest fashion for your Insta photos or whatever. Specifically, batting your eyes and pouting your lips are basically just saying the subject is drawing attention to their features or is showing off. But again, there's no like judgment of them. We're just pointing these things out.
Like that, I can't compare, like that's a match.
So we bring back the like again. Poina becomes like that. I interpret the word compare in Japanese as comparing the singer and the subject. So it becomes I can't compare. And like that's a match has the added bonus of doubling as sarcasm, as if that's a match, basically. Alright, so I took some real liberties here, obviously. The official translation is that quote, that opinion, that review, that charisma, that gag, that taste. Now that I read that again, I feel like you could do something with gag and the double meaning of taste, as in literal taste versus your like choice in clothes and such. Missed opportunity there. But basically, this is another case where I took a step back to look at the whole thing. I see this phrase as meaning everyone listens to what you say, even about inconsequential things. They want to see it all if it's from you, no matter what it is. So I worry less about the specific words of quote, opinion, gag, taste, etc., and I focus on building up the main idea in a way that flows well. So first off, we add the slang here in the form of hot takes. We keep the review part because it, one, makes sense and brings to mind like internet reviews, and two, it rhymes with you. So I'm gonna be real, do my bidding, only kidding, is just because I thought it sounded good. I mean, it still carries the meaning, Of course the subject wouldn't do anything the singer asked. The subject doesn't even know that the singer exists. It's like that meme that's like, you took everything from me, and then the next line is like, I don't even know who you are. Because, we're talking about someone who's like famous on the internet, and the singer is like a random follower. Of course they don't know who this person is. And everybody flocks to you carries the same idea of how everyone's paying attention to the subject. But flock also has religious connotations, with Jesus as the shepherd. Google even has that as one of its definitions. Literally, a Christian congregation of followers. So the religious follower versus social media follower is such a delicious comparison. But, we're coming back to that. But overall, this is like, I feel, a real win for our core ideas of slang and religious double meaning and imagery.
Fucking God, like unlike me, like this, like that, like how did you have?
So like is such a versatile word. It's easy to see how that's goddish unfair becomes you're fucking godlike unlike me, right? And then we have poina again, so like this, like that. I could have said like that, but I think alternating this and that is more natural in English and conveys the same idea. And as luck would have it, like is also like a filler word, as I just said, used most popularly by like girls, I guess. I'm doing it again. So we get a nice double meaning here too. Like, I want what you have is just, another way of saying I want what you have. But if you write it without the comma, it's like I want what you have, as if I want what you have. Like, it's not like I want what you have, baka, Put that comma back there, though. All right. Here we go again.
Like that I'm not like a fucking god.
So now this is the most intimidating part of the song for me, honestly. Like, I've never rapped before. I don't know, does this even count as rap? Like, it's not singing, so to me it's like scary. Honestly, even ad-libs are like so scary to me, guys. Like, I always feel so silly doing anything spoken. Honestly, this song kind of helped with that. Like, I felt really dumb recording all like fucking 50 takes or whatever of every single my god or oh now we're even. But I'm happy with how it turned out. And oh my god, the amount of times I stumble over all of these words, I don't even want to count it. There is so many takes of me just blundering it. But this is also where I'm going to shout out Calliope Mori, because studying her lyrics and the way she rhymes things, especially in translyrics, is what helped me make this part flow so well. Her English covers are just like next level and a huge inspiration. So anyway, I'm done fangirling. Let's get into this part.
It's not that deep, your meta seems to boil down to malice. Look down on me behind your mask, but what are you without it?
Okay, so first, it's not that deep. Look, there's our slang again, in the same sarcastic way. Otherwise, this is a pretty straightforward translation of is the nature of meta-thinking malice. And artifice that looks down on others, you know, that's like a little tricky to parse at first too, but it basically means, in my interpretation, people who are fake with a sense of superiority, even though they're just pretending or living those like fake perfect lives. So again, the meaning is kind of straightforward, but I'm proud of how it's not that deep and look down on me kind of rhyme, and rhyming malice without it, you know, I felt kind of powerful when I came up with that one. I like that.
Candle barely burning can't be said to be alive. Push back against authority and flicker out and die.
So I interpret this phrase as meaning, if you stick to the status quo and live quietly, are you really living? Are you just letting people tell you what to do and coasting through life? Can you even call it life? And because of this word flickering here, I decided to like keep the candle imagery for both of these lines.
You've got 1 million followers, but no one's your disciple. You think the gates of heaven open up for false idols?
So this might be my favorite part of the song. Actually, I'm lying. I know what my favorite line is, and it's not this one, but this is definitely in the top 3. So first of all, we have the wonderful followers, with the double meaning of a social media following versus disciples, or, you know, religious followers. But for this part, I interpret the overall meaning as you pretend to be the most incredible and powerful, denying that there are any others above you, but you're not worthy of such a position. Obviously, I had to take some liberties to get to this phrase from that phrase, but I think it carries the same meaning. You know, even false idols has a double meaning here too. I'm thinking in terms of like seiso, idols, idoru. You know, isn't it a little ironic that we literally call them idols? It's the worshipping of people that we're criticizing here. So not only are they false idols by not literally being God, but also if there is an actual God looking down and judging everybody, do these people really think he's going to look kindly upon them? He's probably not.
A prayer of self-awareness wearing hatred to disguise it.
And I interpret this line as, I'm criticizing you, but I want what you have, so I'm also criticizing myself. But I don't have the courage to self-reflect like that, so instead I'll direct all that hate towards you. Like, the singer is self-aware. She knows the pitfalls of fame and living a fake, picture-perfect life for followers who have no clue who you really are. But the singer is still jealous. If she criticizes the subject, she doesn't have to look inward and criticize herself. Also, I'm really proud of the rhyming stuff going on here. A prayer of self-awareness, wearing hatred. Also, disciples, false idols, disguise it, all kind of rhyming. Rhyming just enough to, I think, keep the flow.
Do you know?
If you know, you know.
I don't get what you're saying. No, I don't know what you mean. Going in one ear and out the other sounds like bull to me. I'm bored to death, okay, you're putting all of us to sleep. How about something I can dance to? Give me a beat.
Alright, so this is a big part here. When I got to this, I stepped back again to look at the general idea, you know, which I interpreted as, I don't know what you're saying, you're annoying, you're also so boring that I'm falling asleep, everybody's bored. The first line, I don't get what you're saying, no, I don't know what you mean. It's a line that's repeated in Japanese, actually. This part is, let's see here, it's naniten no sore uzai naniten no sore. So it's actually the same thing twice, but I did not do that. The syllables don't really play nicely to fit together, in my opinion, so I change up the phrase a little bit, but it has the same meaning and is similar enough. And then how do we express that it's annoying? Well, call it bullshit, of course. And going in one ear and out the other also does that, but it, again, is another common phrase or idiom, so that's a bonus, and it's not exactly slang, but something that people casually say, which is what we're going for here. I'm bored to death is another one, you're not literally dying. Put the okay in the middle, because if I put it at the end, like in the original, it wouldn't rhyme with the next phrase, So you can see, it says okay twice. Kipoinda okay, mina, kipoinda okay. Like, I couldn't have both of these there, because we got beam over here, again, at the end of the next phrase. So I put the okay in the middle as a compromise. And the next line is also a compromise. So I have really no idea what beam is supposed to be doing here. Like, literally, beamu. So I chose beat as compromise, because it fits the whole dancing thing here, and it still kind of sounds like the original word. This part of the song,
I don't get what you're saying, no, I don't know what you mean,
actually has something kind of special about it. There's this little chorus thing happening in the background. I don't know how many people notice what it actually is, but I'm going to explain that to you because it is also relevant. That is also me singing in the background. The alto and soprano part of Mozart's Requiem, Dies Irae. So I realized that the chords of this fit, and then I was consumed by some kind of like fugue state until I recorded the alto and soprano parts and slapped it on there. So Dies Irae means Day of Wrath, and it is a Latin religious text about how God's going to turn the world to ash in his harsh judgment of humanity. Mozart is just one of many composers who set this text to music, but this is probably the most famous version. And I have a work in progress version of the song in the middle of the mixing process where I turned up that chorus part in the background so you could maybe hear it better.
do you know? I don't get what you're saying, no, I don't know what you mean, going in one ear and out the other, sounds like to me, I'm bored to death, okay, you're putting all of us to sleep, there's something I can dance to, give me a beat.
And the words that I'm actually saying at that part are, the day of wrath, that day, will dissolve the world in ashes. This is the testimony of David along with Sybil. Heaven and earth in ashes ending. It's very, very dramatic. But it fits very well with the theme of the song, I think. So, yeah. Fun little Easter egg there for all the chorus people like me. Alright, so let's get back to, Goddish itself.
Going in one ear and out, something I can dance to, give me a beat. Disgusting, disgusting, what you disgust me.
So contrary to the other part like this, repeating disgusting didn't yield bad results in terms of what syllable we're stressing. It's still not ideal for the last one, so it's turned into disgust me. But I still wanted to be a little more interesting than just disgusting times 4. I was thinking of how earlier I grouped I hate you and hey who's because they sounded alike, and I realized that disgust me sounds like disgust me or disgusting, and slipping in a disgust me as the singer is calling the subject disgusting is another nod to their conflicting feelings, which ties in nicely with the next line.
But maybe one day I could be a fan.
Because in the end, there is still admiration buried under the hatred and disgust. It's pretty literal to the official translation. I'm becoming a fan on the contrary.
It's tiny, yeah, mine's tiny, don't mind me. It must be hard being so damn smart that no wanna understand.
This might actually be my favorite line here. So, let's look at this phrase. The overall meaning of this phrase is, you think you're so smart that nobody else can understand you. You're a lone wolf because everyone else is below you, but I think you're the opposite. I think you're stupid, basically, is what the singer is saying here. The how cool is sarcastic here. And so like with the word big, I didn't feel like repeating the word small or tiny would work great here. At the end of these repeated phrases, the stress falls on the last syllable. So, it's tiny, yeah, your mind's tiny, don't mind me. And you see how the different parts are stressed, which makes repeating the same thing awkward in English. So, it's tiny, yeah, your mind's tiny. That's a pretty literal translation of this part. But then I switch it up with a don't mind me at the end, which still sounds similar and rhymes, but adds that extra layer of sarcasm and condescension. And, the little wordplay with, using the word mind again there. And then, of course, it must be hard being so damn smart that no one understands. Once again, I remove the repeated line here, like yay before. In Japanese, we got that kake, where is it? Yeah, here. I turn that into no one understands. The phrasing gets the sarcasm across between don't mind me and, oh, it must be so hard. Like, once again, I thought, we're going up to that high note. It's a pretty important part of the song, so I'm gonna just make it part of the lyrics. And then we're back to the chorus.
Gordy start. Well, aren't you blessed unlike the rest? Just like a fucking god. It's like I'm dying all while crying that I'm not sick at all.
So, first of all, we have the same, well, aren't you blessed unlike the rest? Same thing. And then it's like dying while insisting I'm super healthy feels like I'm dying, all while crying that I'm not sick at all. So that one's pretty straightforward.
Desperation, plain and simple, desperation, see. Oh my God. 'Cause copycat's the best I'll ever be. Holy shit.
So this one's a bigger change here. The desperation part, that's pretty one-to-one, but in the Japanese lyrics, they say melancholic, and epigone's heel. I tried Googling what an epigone's heel was, but I could not find a concrete thing or concept. I think Pinocchio P was combining the concept of an epigone with an Achilles heel. An epigone, according to Google-san, is a less distinguished follower or imitator of someone, especially an artist or philosopher. So what this phrase is saying is basically, I'm pretending I'm fine, but I'm really dying inside. It's pathetic because I'm just an imitator. I honestly didn't know how to pronounce epigone until I wrote this write-up about the lyrics. I thought it was epigony, like an ancient Greek god or something. But anyway, I feel like imparting the idea here was more important than keeping the word epigone intact. Because, once again, it's literally in the Japanese right here. Epigonen no hir is like the lyrics. Copycat feels a lot more casual and honestly more fitting too, because copycat applies to a lot of things like on the internet. And I didn't write it down in the lyrics, but then I threw in that, holy shit there. And that was just me having fun and getting more comfortable with the concept of ad-libs, honestly. Because I was thinking, if we're going to talk about religious but not actually religious slang, I think holy shit is probably the best example, right? Like, it's an exclamation that has nothing to do with either of the words it's made of, but we all understand the meaning perfectly well. I feel like the song needed to have it in there somewhere, basically. So, another fast part. Let's go. So this is another part I'm really proud of. Getting read the title and see it's viral to kind of rhyme here was very exciting. But in any case, with this part, I knew I wanted to keep intact the story and melody that are once again literally in the Japanese lyrics, story, melody. I wanted to keep those intact because they rhyme, which is pretty awesome. But that title, that illustration, that story is basically all about the same thing, a story or book. So I played on the words to get a life story. And since there's this focus on casual language, idioms, and slang, talking about judging a book by its cover, becomes judge the cover. It seemed fitting, and given that the singer is clearly judging the subject by whatever they're presenting on social media, the singer doesn't really know this person at all, right? They don't know their story, really. So, and then that music, that song, that melody are again all really talking about one thing here, a song. So I took some liberties with that one too. I thought of things going viral, which means, to blow up and be really popular on the internet. But the dual meaning is, of course, a virus, a disease, we all know about that, hence the contagious melody, which is something people already say, like when you have a song stuck in your head and it's contagious. So more idioms and common phrases, but also using that dual meaning here to hint at something maybe unpleasant. And
like that, I can't compare.
We got this. We got the rest until
hot takes, give us your review to my bidding, only kidding, everybody flocks to you. You're fucking god, like unlike me, like this, like that. I just know what you have.
So, on the surface, that's, pretty similar, but this is actually one of the first lines I figured out in the song for when I wrote the lyrics. And to me, it's the climax of the song. Like, this is like one of the most important lines in the song. Aku gare chao is I want what you have, right, in the first chorus. But then I thought, okay, so we have to add one syllable to give it an extra punch when it becomes aku gare chao wa, right here. Hence, I just want what you have. So we're only adding the word just, which makes it seem like it's a small thing to want. But the way the phrase is changed up in the music, the word you is what falls on the musical stress here, which is pretty cool. And, it really just brings the point home. Set for a while again.
God. Spoiler warning, love's a bitch, cause you'll just break up. Then someday you'll close your eyes and never wake up. Ignorance is bliss, the fruit of knowledge is rotten. To go in blind and dance through life is all that I wanted.
So I lied again. I think maybe this is my favorite line. Ignorance is bliss is another idiom, right? The reference to the fruit of knowledge is, a religious reference about original sin where Adam and Eve were cast out of heaven for eating the fruit of knowledge, right? The original translation is, I understood everything and suffered. I just wanted to dance without knowing life. So once again, I took a step back here. The singer gained this knowledge of how other people are living, of the things she could have but never will have, realistically. And that led her into this hateful spiral where she keeps comparing herself to something impossible. Hence, the fruit of knowledge is rotten, dangerous. We also make a return to the dancing imagery from the very beginning. To go in blind isn't really an idiom, but it's a casual phrase that carries the meaning of not knowing what to expect. And it's the knowing that caused the singer to suffer so much, after all. So yeah, these trans lyrics took me about 20 days to write, I think. I might have made some periodic edits later on, but the bulk of it was done from February 21st to March 12th. A few weeks after I got out of the hospital. Honestly, I spent a lot of time in bed with my laptop and not much to do, so I was able to focus on these lyrics a lot. I think I went kind of crazy in the process of writing this song, but I'm really proud of this. I knew it was going to be a challenge, and it turned out pretty well, I think. So if you were interested enough to stick around this long, thank you a lot. I appreciate it. I'm still kind of surprised that people like it so much and that people want to know how I write lyrics. That makes me very happy. So I hope this was interesting, and thank you so much for your support. So yeah, bye-bye.